right, so what happens if your home doesn't appraise? You just put it under contract for more than the appraisal value, market value of a property. You got a couple different options as a seller. First of all, you can dispute an appraisal. Now, does this happen very often? No, not very often. And does anything usually change? Not likely. But what you can do is if the buyer will give you a copy of the appraisal, then you can go through and try to find flaws in the appraisal report. So maybe the square footage is off, or the acreage is off, or they used the comps that weren't in the area because they didn't know about the neighbor down the street selling their property. So you can provide these. This is also the reason why we tell you go ahead and give them comps from the get-go, especially if you have comps inside of your neighborhood. Makes life a lot easier, especially if they're not on the market. So say they just sold it to a family friend, but it was a market sale. Great, use it. Even though it's not on the MLS, an appraiser can use anything from tax records. It doesn't matter if it's for a sale by owner, retail sale, whatever it is, they can use that. But go through with fine-tooth comb, look at an appraisal report, and see if there's anything that you can dispute. Your agent should know the differences of what can be disputed, what shouldn't be disputed, or these are better comps. Mr. Appraiser, can you look at these comps and maybe use these instead of the ones that you use? Go with them very nice and with grace, because if you come in there guns a-blazing, they're not gonna change anything. I promise you that. So what do you do if it doesn't appraise? Well, you've got two options. First of all, if the appraiser doesn't bump up his price, you can stay where you're at and hopefully ask the buyer to bring the appraisal gap. This happened a lot in 2020 and 2021. The market's shifting a lot right now, so I'm not sure too many buyers out there are gonna be paying over appraisal price on a property right now. Past couple years, yes, those appraisal gap clauses that were waived, everything else, and they were bringing money to the table and everything else. It's a crazy market. We're not there right now. The other thing that you can do, sadly, is you can lower your purchase price down to the appraisal amount. Now, sometimes this is worth it, sometimes it's not. If appraiser is way off, so sometimes we see appraisers coming from outside the area and they're using two different school districts, or one's in, some of the comps are in city limits and others are in the county, and they're not adding up. And the appraisal price is just way lower than what it actually, the value of the property is, and appraisers just don't know how to do that area in their job very well. Then maybe you're gonna have to put that property back on the market. Yes, it does happen. And yes, we've seen other appraisers that come in at full value of what we originally listed for. So you can do those things. Now, to stop from having all these issues, what's one thing that you can do? Well, you can go ahead and have your home appraised before you list the property. So you can do a pre-listing appraisal. You can pick the actual appraiser there, where whenever it goes under contract, the buyers can't pick their own appraisers. The bank randomly assigns out all that information to an appraiser. So you can go ahead and say, hey, Mr. Appraiser, I've already got another appraisal saying this house is worth $300,000. Here you go, you can look at this if you want to see what their numbers are. Most appraisers aren't really going to dispute other people inside of their own community. So if you already had a value for $300,000, you're under contract for $300,000, you hand an appraiser the previous appraisal at $300,000, more than likely they're going to come in right at that number, so you should be good to go. It's a form of protection for your client, so you're not blindsided after you go under contract, everybody's happy, getting ready to move furniture, and you've already went under contract on your own property, and then you have this appraisal issue. I would highly suggest getting an appraisal done on a property before you list it in a couple different situations. First of all, if the property is extremely unique, so if it's got a lot of acreage, if it's a farm, if it has a tremendous amount of upgrades, if it doesn't fit the rest of the neighborhood, so say you've got a 8,000 square foot house surrounded by 3,000 square foot properties, then yeah, I'd probably go ahead and do that. If it's a commercial property, commercial's a totally different animal. I'd probably go ahead and have an appraisal done on a commercial style property. If it's a property that the seller is wanting a lot more than what is actually market value and you don't want to hurt expectations, I'd go ahead and have an appraisal done. Now, you can get a desktop appraisal done by appraisers in the area, and they will do that and not charge you near as much money. It's not an official appraisal, but they'll say, yeah, I think your numbers are good, or no, I think you're off. That's sort of gonna help you out on pre-listing the property and the expectations of your seller so they're ready to go.